What's going on, everybody? This is Snowman. Welcome to your next editing tutorial. This is part 2 of our one on animation, because I figured this would be a really good video to talk about with animation as well. This is sort of the most complex stuff that I've done, at least from my ability. I am by no means no Premiere expert. I've only actually been using it for maybe 2 or 3 years. But I thought this would be kind of the next thing to talk about after the last one we did of the Super Paper Mario, because that one was all very 2D animation. This is going to include a little bit of 3D animation. And so we're going to dive in. We're going to look, this is from my video, A Creator's Opinion is Implied, and so I did this bit where I talked about if I posted something on Twitter and I would get replies. And so first off, we're going to show how I made these and how they're fake and how I sort of replicated them, but also the animation as they pop in on screen. You can see it, the way they fall down on screen like so. So we're going to take a look at that today, and then I also have a few other cool things, like how I had the highlighting on these comments appear. Yeah, there you go, the yellow highlighting. And then this bit at the end where I show the megaphone and the words popping in on screen. So we'll kind of look at all of that, and hopefully the thing won't crash in the process. I've always been worried about that. So let's first talk about this Twitter thing, because this did take me a lot of practice and tinkering. As I mentioned in the last video, a lot of tinkering in animation is what goes on here. The very bottom base layer here is just the background color blue. You can see by looking here. It's just the base blue color, and the way I actually got that is I literally used the color dropper tool on my Twitter. I have dark mode on Twitter, so I just used this right here, this color dropper, and went and grabbed the color from twitter.com, literally, and just grabbed the background color. And then the tweets are actually pictures themselves that I took from a screen cap on Twitter. So I took one of Mitch and Lewis and Alax. Let's start here. So this first one, I had to do some tricky stuff with the nesting because I add the text on top. So like first, this is just my base tweet, and then I added the text on top of it. So if we open up the nested sequence, you can see it is the tweet itself. And then, okay. And this is not the text yet, but what I actually did is used the box of the same color as the thing here to cover up the actual tweet of what I said, which was "Saw Spider-Verse can confirm that movie's amazing." Like, I just basically grabbed random tweets. So this is my base tweet, and I used colored boxes. My cat is on my back. Showing off, to cover up the text so that it was a blank tweet, if that makes sense. Now, you might notice, hey, the text is not covered, the box is way up here and the tweet's way down here. That's because I had to do a little bit of magic tomfoolery to make it all work. So, the base tweet, what I actually did was moved it lower on the screen. Normally, 720x40 is dead centered, but I wanted it to be lower on the screen, and I'll explain why in a minute. It has to do with the basic 3D animation. This is where the tweet originally was, and so I just moved the box down later, but it's nested so that it kept it in the animation. It's a little bit confusing, but all you need to know is I covered up the text with these boxes, and then I moved the nested sequence down, so you can see here minus 485. So I actually moved it up because I wanted it up higher on the screen, but had to do a little bit of tomfoolery. So the nested sequence so far is just the blank text, or the blank tweet, and I covered up the date so it wouldn't be confusing and the text together. And then this title is the text itself, and that just does a linear wipe on screen. If you don't know what a linear wipe is, that's just so that it appears left to right. To do that, I do -90 degree angle, wipe angle, and then it goes on. It just goes left to right, whoop, just like that. If I did 90, not -90, if I just did regular 90, it would go right to left. So that's why I did the negative there. And it's just 0 to 100%, and it just does it quick. And then I also added a typing sound effect. Personify. So that it just appears, and then I have a typing sound effect, so it looks like I'm typing that. Okay, so far so good. Oh, but I forgot about the actual crazy part of the animation itself. I used some tilt. We talked last time about swivel and tilt. Tilt is the, again, I'm going to get this wrong, the x-axis, and swivel is the y-axis. So we do some tilt, but instead of just doing that as a flat image like the Super Paper Mario video, I do some actual animation with it. So I do -90° tilt. That makes it perfectly flat, and you actually can't see it because it's literally 90 degrees flat plane. If it was 0%, it would be flat fully so you can see it. Like, let me just show you that. 0, just straight up 0 would be nothing. Oh, it hasn't popped in yet. I'm confused. Okay, you can see here, yeah, 0. Oh, it's because the opacity was down. That's my bad. So, music, man. Every time, too loud. Yeah, the opacity is down so you couldn't see it. But see, 0% is just a flat picture. If I did 180, it would be upside down, and you actually can't see it because it's so high. But 180 flips it all the way around. Like if I actually, you can see there, that's the actual animation moving it up and down. But we don't want any of that. We want it to be completely flat, and then as you can see what the animation does is it flaps down and does a little bit of a rock back and forth. So it goes like this. Posted on Twitter. Oh, yeah, I messed up because I started at 0 instead of -90. We gotta go back. Okay, it goes like this. Posted on Twitter. So it and it probably lagged out on your screen there a little bit. It starts completely flat, drops down, and then waves past, and then back, and then like settles. And so again, frame by frame, if I show you that here, or animation by animation, I actually did quite a bit of drop down. So the first thing is it drops all the way back, so then it does like a backswing, 10 degrees. Then it actually hangs a little bit, then I go to 11, and then -7, so it comes back to the front a little bit, again hangs for a second, -8, 0, +3, 0. So I'll try to show it to you without it lagging out. Comes down, goes back, does a little bit of swing, and then just straight to a completely flat. So altogether it looks like it swings and drops and does a little bit of a settle at the bottom. So again, that's just doing the tilt from completely flat, and then it swings down. Now, I had the darndest time figuring this out, and again, this is why I did the nested sequence and I moved the picture down. It needs to be on the bottom half of the screen for the tilt to go down. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about. If this was just regular 540, ignore, oh, sorry. Ignore the text, not, dang it, I did it again. Ignore the text box for a second, but just see the tweet itself. If I made this 0, yeah, there you go, and I did the tilt the same thing, you can see it's just gonna rotate the entire thing. Did you see that? Like the pivot point or anchor point is what it's rotating. When you do tilt and swivel of Basic 3D, it rotates the entire image, your entire screen. And so the pivot point is always the center. So that's why I needed the picture to be on the bottom of the screen, because to get that tilt animation to come from top to bottom, the top of the picture here needed to be at the center of the pivot point. I hope that makes sense. That's a little confusing even to me. But the picture needed to be down below like this, so that when I tilt the entire screen, it tilts from here, this point, and therefore it drops down below. If this was completely at the top, which is originally what I wanted, because the tweet is here at the top of the screen, right? So I actually wanted, that's what I did at first, is put the tweet at the top and then did the tilt. But look again, if I did the tilt, you can see it goes up instead, and it's the same reason. It's because it's rotating from the middle of the screen, and so because it's above the center, it goes up, and if it was below the center, it goes down. So that took me just a few minutes to like really figure out how tilt animation actually works. So know that if you're doing 3D, if you want something to do like a drop-down menu like I did, it needs to be on the bottom half of the screen. If you want something to pop upward, it needs to be on the top half of the screen. And if you want it to just rotate straight from the center, it can be dead center and it'll flip in the middle of it. And I hope that makes sense. Again, that might be a little confusing. But it needed to be at the bottom in the nested sequence so that it tilts from the bottom, but then in the actual sequence, I just moved it up so that it's at the top of the screen. It was a little bit tricky, but then you can see I put the text just on top of it here, because once the animation was done, the text can just be there. It doesn't need to move. In fact, this title does not have any animation other than the linear wipe. Now, over here though, I do the same thing with the 3 replies. So they do the exact same thing where they drop down, boing, boing, boing. But I did have to do some weird stuff here. So in these nested sequences, this is the actual text above it here. I put on the same box the actual color that covers up the old tweet, and then the new text on top of it. So that's just one title, and then the tweet itself. But same thing, you can see the position is just barely below the middle. It's barely below the middle of the screen. That's on purpose so that the animation is a drop down. And so again here you can see the tilt. But this is it's less animation. It's not quite as complicated. It just goes -90, 0, 9, -5, 0. So just a shorter boom, boom, boom. And then I copy and pasted the exact same thing for all 3. And so they all 3 go boom, boom, boom. Now this again though, it took me a second because I had to do the exact same thing where the tweets are in the same location in the nest. So, and then I moved them once they're in the actual timeline. So you can see this one's a little bit lower, 737, where this one's 542, and this one's 912. So the Mitch one is lower than the other one, but in the nest it's in the same position. I'm totally confusing myself, but this might make sense to some people. I'm sorry if it's so complicated. Essentially, in the nest, they need to be in the exact same spot, just below middle, so that they give that little downward tilt. But then in the actual sequence, I moved them lower so they were in an actual position. And the reason I did this, so if I had moved, this one was fine, but if I had moved, for example, the Elax tweet lower to where I actually wanted it, the animation looks like this. Oh, yeah, and then if I move this, let's say 540, just centered, right? Because that's the final position I wanted, but the animation would look like this. See how it like comes out of the middle and like it covers up the old tweets? I didn't want that. So again, the reason to do that is so that it does the animation from the lower part on the screen where I actually wanted it to appear. So that's confusing to me, so I hope it's not confusing to you, but it did bend my brain a bit, but I finally got it to work. So using tilt to do the animation, but the position in the nest is important. And if they weren't nested sequences, same thing, I would need to make sure the position was lower than the middle, otherwise the animation would not be the correct one that I wanted it to be. Now this nested sequence is me adding the text, no. From here, I actually just nested everything together. So my tweet with the text and the 3 other tweets down below, I nested them all together to make one giant thing, because then I just did a little bit of zoom and move around. So you can see here I did also with sound effects a zoom in to the top, whoosh, and it goes to the the whoosh sound. So I zoomed to the top and then zoomed again to the bottom with another sound effect where it goes whoosh down below. So I'm just moving, you can see the scale was the zoom in, so it's 100% to 150, and then I moved the position to lower to show the text, and then this is just a very slow fade out to the original position. And then I do a final 3D animation at the end, but they're all together one basic image now, so at the very end it goes whoop, and the whole thing from the center just tilts out almost like a TV screen going out or something, you know, like a whoop. So that was intentional. I probably could have made it so that they separated again into their separate items and all flipped separately, but just for ease of peace of mind here, I just did them all together and they all faded out together. So yeah, 3D tilt and swivel, you know, you can do that. It just makes sure that it does the right thing that you want it to do. Exactly what I said earlier about you just gotta tinker with it until it works. I actually went and like asked some friends how to do this because I was really frustrated and I thought it had to do with the anchor point. So we're going to talk about anchor points in a second with the text coming out of the screen of the megaphone. But I thought anchor point was the solution. I thought if I have my tweet that's appearing here, right, and I want the swivel to be from the top of it, I thought I just need to move the anchor point. So I actually did that. I moved the anchor point from the center of the screen to the top of the tweet, thinking that would fix it. That did not fix it. It was completely independent of each other. An anchor point is something else we'll talk about in a second, but that wasn't the solution. So that's what I thought, because, you know, that's the pivot point that I thought it would work with, but it's totally unrelated. So let's move on to the megaphone where the words come out. Now again, your screen might lag a little bit here. I may actually delete the footage behind it just so that the thing doesn't get overloaded, but you'll see the animation at least of what I'm talking about here. So first things first, I have the megaphone roll in. So this is the first bit of animation. This is just rotation and position. So you can see it's -1.5 times all the way around, and then it rotates all the way in to actually more than 0. It goes all the way to 39. So if this was perfectly flat at 0, it would just look like this. That's the regular base image, but I had to go further, and then it settles back into place. So again, I like to give my animation a little bit of that like settling effect. That's sort of a theme you might notice with my animation. So it rolls in and does a little bit of roll back, like it rolled too far and then it settles. So that's a basic, you know, similar to the things popping in and out from our last animation tutorial. Now though, you can see the text will come out of the megaphone and show on screen here, a creator's opinion is implied.
A creator's opinion is implied.
That's very, very loud for me. Anyway, so you can see it came out of the megaphone here. So, like, yeah, like that came out of the megaphone. And it looks really cool when it's all said and done. So the very first thing, well, let's start here. So this is the base position. And what I've done here is I have an actual title of it. This is only one title, and again, I mentioned this last time, cropping is your best friend. If you ever want a full title to appear in bits and pieces, like for it to pop up with my words, which is what I did in this case, where every time I said a word, it appeared. Cropping is the fastest and easiest way to do that. You could make the title separate titles for each word, and I've done that in the past. For example, deleting all this from creator's opinions implied, and then make a new title that's copy and pasted, but then just the next word. So creators is its own title, opinion is its own title, is, etc. And you can do that and then have those be separate titles that you throw in, but you don't have to do that. It can be its own title here, and this way they're all centered and they're good and everything. And instead I just cropped each one. So you can see I cropped from the very bottom all the way to just the A, and then here I cropped the top of it so it's 21%, that covers the A, and then 60, so the only thing that's isolated is the word creators, and then same thing, opinion is, etc. I changed the crop to isolate each line of the text, and that's just a really fast way to do that. Now, the animation itself is just a combination of rotation, scale, and position, so it's all three working together. The position is right behind the microphone, or the megaphone, not microphone. It's scaled very small, it's only 10%, so it's behind the thing, you can't even see it. And then it rotates, so it's angled a little bit, and then it just basically comes like it's over here, and it comes out, and settles and becomes bigger. So it's all three things at once: rotation, size, and position. So it's moving position, size, and rotation. And I sort of just did this for each of these until, again, it looked good. So it's just, it comes out, whoop, creator's opinion, yeah, and it just comes out like that. And then I did actually this other thing with the megaphone here where I moved it down so that the other words come out from the center of it again, because again, these words are coming out to the bottom of the screen here, so I wanted the megaphone to still be the center of where they exit. So if it was still in this position, the is would like come out down at this weird angle and implied, so I moved the megaphone down so that it still came out in the center, like that. And I thought this looked pretty good. I really was happy with how that came together. It just, the way the words rotated in and everything. I feel like there was something else I was going to mention. That's right, the anchor point. That's what it was. So the main reason, so the reason anchor points are so important is so that the motion of animation comes from the center of the word. So if I say anchor point for the A, you can see I have moved the anchor point to the center of the A, and I did this for each of the things. Oh, no, I didn't actually. That's really funny. Oh, okay, so rookie mistake here. I should have done this where every single title to change the anchor point to the actual individual words. That would have made the animation a little bit more perfect, but it looked fine as it is, so I didn't really have a problem with it. But again, if I didn't move that anchor point, if any title, the anchor point is normally in the very center of the screen, because again, a title takes up the entirety of your screen, right? So a title thing, the anchor point is normally just the center here. So even though the text is on the right side or whatever, the default of a title card is the anchor point is in the dead center. This isn't exactly, it's supposed to be 725/40. But if I did that, the animation would look off. You can see it would like, oh, it does a weird. Ignore that, but it basically just, you need to know that it would make the whole thing, it wouldn't be from the center of the letter, which that's what, if you want your titles to do specific animation, make sure the anchor point is on the center of the text. Otherwise, it'll just be much more difficult to work with. That's all I'm really trying to say, is you need to make sure the anchor point's on the center of the letter. That way, it's much easier to animate, because then it's like you're working with the base of the object itself instead of the entire screen. For example, just any other random picture, say I took this Joseph Anderson thing, the picture itself here, the anchor point is the center of the picture. Like any object, it's gonna be that way. So even if I made this 25% and moved it over here, the anchor point's in the center of the image. And so already animation is easier on that object. But a title is the entire screen, so it's not centered on the text. So just move the anchor point, makes the animation easier. But there you go. I rolled in the megaphone, and then they come out of the thing. And if you're wondering how I made my voice sound like a megaphone, first of all, this is a click of a walkie-talkie sound effect. With me. You can barely hear it. It's like a click at the very beginning, and then at the end here it goes. That click. And then up here is a megaphone, or it's a microphone feedback sound effect. But then all I did is I added a fade out on it so that it wasn't super loud, and it fades out real quickly. So what you get together is a click and a feedback sound that just makes a megaphone, like as if getting a little bit of feedback. With me. So click and yeah. And then I clicked again at the end, and so it's just to give it that little megaphone sound. And then here, all I did is I added reverb. That's the only thing. If you go to your effects panel and say reverb, it's I did convolution reverb. There's a few options here, but I just did convolution, added it in, and that's all I did. It just made it sound more reverby, which is really what a megaphone does, right? So that's all I did, is I added that to the audio, and it made it sound more echoey. So that's a real basic one of just making my voice sound different. But it was the combination of the sound effects at the beginning, and I added more walkie-talkies here at the end. So the click, you heard the click again at the very end there, making it sound like I let go of the button. So the sound effects really sold it, but really it's just a reverb on the audio. So anyway, that's how I did that. We don't have a ton of time, but just very quickly, I'm going to show you the comments here, where I have the yellow highlight text underneath the words. I'm going to do the same thing where I delete the background so that you can really see what's going on here. So these are just my two comment pictures, and they come in animated. They fly in from the left to the right, ease out, ease in. They both do that at the same time. And then I have the text fade in as well. This is actually two of the yellow boxes. So you can see again, this is just a title, the yellow boxes that I just put on there. Now there is something I did to make it more visible, and this is important to know from your opacity settings, as I changed it from normal to darken. If I did normal, you can see here it kind of, they're only at 50% opacity in the title card, but you can see the text is like harder to see at even at 50%. But if you say darken, it lets all the blacks pop up through the color. So the black appears very bright, and if I did lighten, for example, it would do the opposite. It gets rid of the light, but darken made the dark pop through. So we did screen previously on when I was talking about green screens. In our green screen video, we talked about screening from your opacity settings. Darken, similar principle, but it's so that the dark pops through the color. Now, same thing here. I just had the colors do a linear wipe. So a linear wipe left to right, again that -90, it just appears over the text. I lined it up. It must be this one, yeah. So I just had it line up with the text. I just made a yellow box over it, 50% opacity, and then it linear wipes on there and it's darkened so it pops through. That's all I did. And then here, I just animated it so that it moves with the boxes as they leave. Otherwise, the yellow would still be on screen. So that's all I did. I could have nested them to do that, but again, time, efficiency, whatever. Now this is just a second one, and the only thing here is that, where can we see it? Yeah. Oh, did I not animate this? That's hilarious. Again, this is so bizarre to me to see my own mistakes. I should have animated this with a linear wipe. Let's do that real quick, just so you can see what it looks like. I always do linear, boom, -90 is the angle you want. But here at the very beginning, let's add a transition complete. You actually want 100, because that means it's disappeared right now. But then a little bit in, let's make it 0. And you'll see that that just gives it a little bit of animation. It goes, ooh, it's very, very fast. It's basically all done in 2 frames. If instead I made this like 50, it will go a little slower. It's still really fast, but give it just a little bit of animation so that it appears. That's funny that I didn't catch that in the video. I should have. But anyway, so the reason 50% is it's fully showing is again because it takes the entire title card as the percentage. So 100% is the whole screen, 0, and then over here is 50, and then over here is 100. So because all of the color is on the left side of the screen, that's behind 50. In fact, I could probably go to like 30% and it would still be all there. So because I changed that to 50, it basically just slowed the animation down. I can also move it out, and then you can see it slowly fills in a little faster. It's still really fast, but anyway, that's how you can add some animation of it appearing left to right, just a linear wipe. But anyway, that was just the yellow highlight to make sure the text that I wanted people to be looking at in these whole comments to be emphasized. So I just added that yellow stuff on top with the darken so that the text was not muddied out. And I did that 3 separate times on 3 separate areas of comments. So there you go. That's like, man, crazy animation in a nutshell. The comments thing, or the Twitter thing, was the most complex. And then the megaphone thing I had done before, similar things in past videos, so that was just again tweaking to get it right. Doing the yellow behind the comments, actually the first time I ever had done, I had used darken, so that was kind of cool, but it again was relatively easy. But working with 3D animation was kind of the first time for me. So I hope you enjoyed, and again, I have no idea if these even help you. I'm just showing you my process, showing you how I did things, and hopefully it can help you out for the future. Let me know if there's other tutorial things you would like to see in the future. I will totally take into consideration future tutorial ideas and things that you might see from me of my videos. So let me know in the comments. Tell me on Patreon. Tell me, you know, on Twitter, whatever. Tell me, and I'll see if I can do future tutorials for you of things you would like to see of how I do what I do. Thanks for watching this one. It was super fun for me to make, and I'll see ya next time. Bye-bye.